Welcome back to another episode of How She Built This. And today we are so lucky to be joined with our own content manager, Maura, here at MeetEdgar. So what a lot of you might not know about Maura is before she joined the Edgar team, she actually had her own freelance business. So today we're going to talk about creating and really thriving in a freelance business in a location-independent place where you can control your clients, your income, and really find a passionate way to make sure that you are getting your marketing skills out there. So I'm going to pass it over to Maura to introduce herself and to describe a little bit about how she started her company.
Thanks, Megan. Yeah, so if we've never met before, if you haven't been on a Edgar webinar or bachelor party, my name's Maura. I am the content manager here at MeetEdgar by day, and by night I am a freelance marketer. I do social media and content writing for small to medium-sized businesses. Before I joined Edgar, I was a full-time freelancer, and I was a full-time freelancer for about 4 years. And I got started, I was always doing marketing. I was always in social media. But around like 5-6 years ago, I was at a company that I was really unhappy at. I didn't like it. I didn't like the people. I hated going to work every day. And I was super worried that I was going to lose my job. Like every day people were talking about layoffs. The company was really like badly run. And so I started getting like nervous that I was going to lose my job. And someone kind of casually mentioned to me that like I had really transferable skills and I could do that for a lot of different people. And I just remember telling someone one day, it was actually like a friend of a friend who had like a church group that she was trying to like get the messaging around. And I was like, oh, I can write an email for you. That's like what I do in my day job. Like I love writing marketing emails. And I completely made up a price. I didn't know what I was doing, but that was like my first client really. I think I charged something like $50 or something. It was I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, people will pay me for this. Like I would have done it for free. So that's kind of how it all started. I did it like as a side hustle for a couple months, and then I went full time. And like I said, I did that for a few years. So when I was first getting started, I think might be a good time for a lot of people if they're trying to figure out how to get their side hustle. I emailed everybody I knew, and I was like, I'm doing this now. I'm doing it. It's just under my own name. And I just told people like, hey, I'm doing marketing now on digital marketing. I can write copy, I can write emails, I can do social media. Like I'm open for business. If you know anybody, if you have any questions, like reach out to me. And even though I didn't get anyone like in my actual circle, everyone kind of knew somebody. And so I think when you reach out, like when you're able just to like put that scary email out, it was so scary to like BCC everyone on my contact list. And like, it wasn't just like work colleagues either. Like I was emailing like my aunts, my cousins, like just anyone I knew. But once you do it, then like people do want to help you out. Like they're excited for you and they want to like send people your way. And I still get people randomly referrals from like neighbors or just offhand. So I think like really putting yourself out there is probably the first step. If you want to go freelance, it doesn't have to be marketing. It can be graphic design, anything. Like the world is full of freelancers. Definitely start with like the audience you already have, which is like your immediate friends, family, colleagues, things like that. I think that's probably the first
love
step.
that advice so much. It doesn't have to be this huge, scary thing where you're creating brand new systems and everything right from the start. You can use what you have and really get creative with making sure people get the word out that you're available for these products and services. Now, one of the ways that we know here at MeetEdgar that works so well for getting the word out is actually utilizing things like social media marketing. It's one way that you can reach clients who have the need for your services, but it's also a way to build trust amongst people. So can you talk a little bit about how you've built trust with your clients and how you've really grown your audience utilizing tools like social media?
Yes, for sure. So there's two platforms that I really have used like heavily to get freelance clients. And one is Facebook groups, because if you've ever joined like a Facebook group, you know, there's so many, like there's so many for small business owners. There's so many for like other entrepreneurs. Like I found a lot of other entrepreneurs who are building other types of businesses, but needed marketing help like in those groups. And then I also used LinkedIn a lot. So LinkedIn was great because it kind of gave me like a little bit of a platform to like actually write and create articles and like share like my own thoughts, like professional thoughts and things like that. Like I'm obviously a writer, so Twitter was never really long enough for me. So I always went with LinkedIn. And the nice thing about LinkedIn too, if you're thinking about getting into freelancing, is they have something called like their pro finder. So you can sign up for it and people put out bids like for freelancers and contractors. And then like as a freelancer or contractor, you can like apply for those bids. And that was really nice because if someone got a bid for me on Pro Finder, they would go and they'd look at my LinkedIn and I would have like lots of articles and like, you know, thoughts about like social media. And I would share like testimonials, like I would share my thought process or how I built something. So I had that like built-in expertise after I put the bid in. Then they'd look and they'd be like, oh, this girl knows what she's talking about. And she shared a bunch of it. So it was really like a good place to kind of show off your expertise, which you got to be doing on any platform, I think. Just like pick the ones that work for you, pick the ones where your audience is. And then like the other thing I would say is like this worked really well on Facebook groups, like take the time to engage. I think like use your profile like to share all your expertise, things like that, like your articles, your website, whatever you got to do. But then actually like take time to be a human and like answer questions or just like try to make friends. Like if you're going to be in freelance, I would tell you like it's a long game sometimes. Sometimes you'll meet someone and they won't want to hire you or they won't need to hire you or like they're not even in a business. And then 6 to 8 months later, you'll get an email from them. They'll be like, hey, we chatted in a Facebook group months ago, or you befriended me out because of a Facebook group or something like that. So I think like taking a time aside to like actually engage and find that balance of like, I'm going to, you know, post some promotional stuff in the morning and then in the afternoon, I'm just going to like be a human and like talk to people and make those connections because you never know like when that's going to come back to you.
That makes so much sense. And one of the things I want to really highlight here that Maura was talking about is going to where your audience is. You don't have to spread yourself so thin on social media to feel like you have to be on every single platform and you have to show up 100% everywhere. You can make sure that you're really focusing where your audience hangs out. And that's doing the research, knowing exactly who you're trying to hit and knowing the demographics of each platform and speaking into those so that it resonates with the people there. I also really want to talk to you a little bit about how you have started to price your stuff. So I know at the very beginning, you said you just kind of made it up on the fly. And I think that's a great place to start. But as we start to create systems and become more of a business in that aspect, can you talk to me a little bit about how you got over the hump of being afraid to ask for what you're worth and really make sure that you're charging the right prices to create a thriving business?
Yes, I made lots of mistakes when it came to pricing, and I'm sure many other freelancers out there do as well, because it's scary and you want to get business and you feel like, you know, if I have the cheapest like product, I will get business. What ends up happening if you underprice yourself because you just want to get the client is you end up having to take on a lot of clients and you get super stressed out because you're working all the time and you're barely paying your bills and you're not putting out good work. So you have to make sure that whatever you're pricing like gives you enough space to be great at what you do. I used to price hourly and then I switched off that because the more you work, the faster you got at doing things. So you don't want to like say, oh, something used to take me 2 hours and now it only takes me an hour and now I make less money. So be really careful if you choose to go the hourly rate. And also the other thing with hourly when you're freelance is like, you're not just spending that full hour writing. Like you're probably brainstorming a little bit, or then like you're doing admin stuff during your day, like you're doing sales stuff. So like charging by the hour doesn't make any sense because if you're working 40 hours a week just on client stuff, well, you have to work another 10 to 15 hours like in business stuff. And then you're working all the time. And that's not why any of us went into business for ourselves. So I would definitely recommend. So a couple things that helped me is like, I did meet other people again in Facebook groups who were freelancers and I talked to them about like what they charged. I looked at their websites, not to like just steal like what they're doing, but just to kind of get an idea of what the going rate was. I think meeting other people in your industry, the world is huge. Don't be worried about competition. Like there's tons of clients for all of us. Like nobody is you. We say that all the time at MeetEdgar. Like nobody has what you have. So don't worry about like, I have lots of friends who are marketing freelancers who do social media, who do copywriting. And like, I've never once been like, oh no, what if they get a client over me? Like, okay, well then that's their client. So definitely like reach out to people in your industry and use social media to do this. Like get on Twitter, Instagram, like find other people, have conversations, find out like what they're charging. And then think about like what you want to make. Like think about what you need to earn every year. Like do that backwards math. Well, if you're only going to work 4 days a week, then how much do you need to make per day? How many clients is that? I would think like there's a lot of things that can go into it, but that's just one thing that's like really helps me. It's like, I want to make X amount every year. Well, how many hours do I work? Like, a month, or like how many days do I work? And then you can kind of build off there. I would definitely say like, don't just play the low game. Like if you are really someone who's just like trying to like get by on pennies, like there are always going to be people out there who will go for the lowest person, but they're not going to be the best clients. So if you want to do your best work, like you have to charge a certain amount, and you will find people who will pay that because they want your expertise. Like they want someone who's good, and you're only going to be like your best if you're not freaking out about paying the bills next month. So, just kind of have a little bit of faith in that. And I promise you, like once you get that first person, like who pays that amount, that you're like, oh man, I didn't think anyone was going to pay that. Like you're going to feel amazing. You're going to be like, oh, I can do this. So just kind of trust in that. And feel like, don't be afraid to change your prices. Like that's another thing. If you've been in business for a couple of years and you haven't raised your prices, like you have a lot more experience than you did a few years ago. Like feel free to raise those prices. And that's how you kind of evolve your business and grow as a business owner.
That makes so much sense. And I love just kind of taking the idea that you're working backwards. So having that main goal in mind and making sure your strategies all lead into that goal is so important as she's talking about pricing backwards. So one last question that I would love for you to dive into is how you have that initial call with your first clients. When you're first meeting a client, how do you really make sure that you're talking to all the stakeholders involved in the project to make sure that you're not working on something for hours at a time and then it's not exactly what the client wants to hear? What are some of the important questions you need to be asking your clients to make sure that there's great communication flows and that you're both on the same page about the project scope?
Yes, that is a great question. One of my favorite questions to ask is like, well, what are your goals? Like, what would make this project a success? If at the end of it, and like, this is not just for freelancing, like I use this with MeetEdgar too, like every marketer, anyone can really get out like something out of this. Like, what are your goals? Like, what are the outcomes you want? At the end of this, what would make you turn back and say, wow, that was a total success? If you can get that from someone, then like, your process, what it takes to get there, like, and you'll be able to fill in the gaps. But clients are always going to have their own idea. And sometimes their ideas are too big. Like sometimes they want the world and they, you can't give them the world because no one can. So you have to kind of temper it a little bit, but I definitely think always going in saying, what goals do you want to achieve? Like, what's going to make this a success for you? Also ask like, who's involved in this project? Like, what's the approval process like? Who's going to have to approve the messaging that goes out? Because that way, like, going in, it's not just this one person I'm talking to. It's this one person and their boss and their boss's boss or whoever. Like, just like be willing to ask that question, because the more questions you can ask in that first meeting or on that first call, like the more equipped you're going to be. So I always use that first call as like, I just pepper them with questions, because I want to know like, what's going on in your business? What's worked really well? What made you want to hire a freelancer? Like, why are you on the phone with me right now? Like, why are you looking for outside help? All of those details, they seem really minor, and the client might be like, why are you asking me this? But it's going to give you a bigger picture of like how the business is as a whole. You don't always get that like inside the business view. So ask the deep questions, ask them for, past projects that worked really well. If they can give you an example of something like they loved working on or they loved the outcome, that will be able to like give you a good idea. Oh, well, this is their expectation. And then once you know their expectations, you can create the plan to meet them.
That makes so much sense. This idea of over communication, not being shy about doing it, is going to get you way better results than if you think you're saving someone time without digging deep into those questions. So I love that so much. So last little idea here for making sure we're giving people the motivation to get out there and be brave about starting a freelance project. Can you share one last tip or something that you're really proud of about how your freelance business ended up?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I would say to you, like, if you want to do freelancing, it can be hard, it can be scary, it can feel really uncertain, but there's something really empowering about being like, oh, I've done this once, I can continue doing it. And I think that's like, once you get that first client, then you can get 20 clients. Like, once you get that first project, then like you can get any project out there. Like, once you've had 1 month under your belt where you've paid all your bills and you had a little bit extra and you're doing it on your own terms, like, let that experience, like, it does take time. Like, I know it's a big thing with like you go 0 to 6 figures in 6 months or whatever. Like, that doesn't always happen for a lot of people. Like, find those small wins and let them add up. And the more you add those small wins up, like, you're going to feel really good, and you're going to be able to look back and be like, I didn't even know how to do a proposal 6 months ago, and now I write 4 proposals a day. Like, those are the kind of things like you have to pay attention to when you're a freelancer, because most of the time it is you, it's all on you, and it can get very lonely. So find those people in Facebook groups or Twitter and Instagram, like, get your community and like be paying attention to those small wins, because for a while it's probably only going to be small wins, like, you know, and that's okay. Like, that's part of it. So just identify what it like when you feel really good when you get off a call, like, celebrate that. Like, celebrate when someone like gets back to your proposal, even if they don't end up hiring you. Like, well, they still interviewed you, you know, like, you're taking those steps. Like, baby steps add up a lot. So like, just, it's kind of like with social media, like, every follower, like, celebrate that follower, you know, like, celebrate those likes, because you're playing a long game. And I think that's the best thing about freelancing. If you play the long game, you can do it forever. I mean, this is still my side hustle. Like, even though I have a full-time job, but like, it's great. I'm still playing the long game, you know? So just kind of keep that in mind, and you'll have fun. It's great.
I love that so much. What's the next small baby step you can take to get that momentum? Because once you get the ball rolling and you see the success as added up, there's going to be no stopping you. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this expertise. If you guys have any questions at all about starting your own freelance business, let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like this video if it added any value to you, and reach out to support@meetedgar.com if you want to connect with Maura or I further. Thanks so much for your time today, Maura.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, guys.